just introduce yourselves in the chat. Um, 10:03. Okay, I guess we can go ahead and get started. All right, great. So again, good morning, everyone. My name is Faraya. I have the pleasure of serving as the Director of Development at Faith in Texas. I joined the team back in November, and I must say it's been one of the most rewarding experiences in my professional career thus far. To kick us off, I just want to share a little bit about Faith in Texas. Faith in Texas is a nonpartisan, multiracial, multi-faith grassroots movement of people united in values, working together to achieve economic, racial, and social justice for all people. We are Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Unitarian, Universalist, and believers in humanity. We are people of diverse races, faiths, socioeconomic backgrounds, and professions. We're your family, friends, neighbors, and community. Faith in Texas engages people, communities, and voters through community organizing, civic engagement, and leadership development to create pathways of opportunity for all Texans to thrive. To affect these types of change at a local and state level, we do this by naming the lies and false narratives that undergird injustice and threaten our collective power and liberation, build broad coalition across race, class, and faith that reflect the many stakeholders in our community to engage in strategic actions to dismantle unjust systems, demand accountability and transparency from our public systems and elected officials, develop a new generation of community leaders and elected officials to establish, protect, and promote community-centered issues, policies, and systems, and pursue and promote grassroots funding. We do all of this through policy campaigns and integrated voter engagement, leadership development and faith formation, deep listening and research, public action and civil disobedience, and storytelling and strategic communications. We affirm and root our work in these five universal truths. All humans have inherent worth and deserve to be treated with dignity, care, and respect. The most directly impacted people should be the center and driving force of solutions. Organizing should build power that is shared by all. Freedom is an inalienable right. And lastly, God is at work to restore justice in our society. In summary, our small team of 10 is building a powerful faith-based movement that seeks to change the dominant narrative about whose voices should be heard in public life while also shaping critical public policies for the liberation of all Texans. Without any more delay, let me just go ahead and introduce our fierce leader and our dynamic guest. First, many of you may already know her, but Akila Wallace serves as the Executive Director of Faith in Texas. She has nearly 20 years of experience in business and 11 years in nonprofit leadership. Akila joined Faith in Texas 4 years ago after building a career in fundraising with a local foundation. She's the founder of Heritage Giving Fund, a Black women's giving circle who will have awarded $100,000 to Black women-led nonprofits and is nationally known voice for African American giving and justice advocacy. Akilah became our executive director 2 years ago, and together we seek to raise $1.4 million to help Faith in Texas build a base of 1,000 trained leaders by the end of 2021. Most recently, Akilah was accepted into the inaugural Black Women in Nonprofit Leadership cohort. Joining Akilah in conversation today is Nse Ufot. These two powerful leaders are members of the newly formed Black Southern Women Cooperative, a collective of 6 organizing CEOs with a 10-year strategy to transform the South under the direction of Black women organizers. Nse is the Chief Executive Officer of the New Georgia Project and its affiliate New Georgia Project Action Fund. Nse leads both organizations with a data-informed approach and a commitment to developing tools that leverage technology with the goal of making it easier for every voter to engage in every election. Nse and her team are also developing Georgia's homegrown talent by training and organizing local activists across the state. She has dedicated her life and career to working on civil, human and workers' rights issues and lead two organizations whose complementary aim is to strengthen Georgia's democracy. Under Nse's leadership, NGP has registered over 500,000 eligible Georgians to vote and has no plans of slowing down. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Akilah and Nse.
Hi.
Hey, good morning. Good morning. Hey, Nse.
Hi. Hey, girl. Hey.
Yes. So first, I just want to give my sincerest condolences and prayers for you and your family following your recent loss.
Thank you.
Your presence here today is deeply appreciated. So thank you so much, sister, for accepting my invitation. Being flexible with us having to reschedule due to the unprecedented winter storm and power outages that directly impacted all of us here living in Texas. And then, through your own personal struggles, still being able to show up with us today. So thank you, sis. I really do appreciate you and look forward to it's engaging in, some good sister talk. Okay. So we can keep it informal.
I look forward to it. I can't wait.
And also, I just want to, before we get started, just say thank you to everyone who has joined us, close friends of Faith in Texas, some who, maybe for the first time are being introduced directly to you and say into your work. So I'm sure we're all in for a treat in learning about you and the incredible work that New Georgia Project is leading. So to get us started, please briefly share a little bit about your upbringing and how it has shaped your perspective on justice issues, especially as a Black immigrant woman raised in America.
Yeah. So my parents are, I think, a part of that generation of Africans who immediately after independence, so 60s through the 70s, were supposed to go to the US and go to the sort of institutions, the best higher ed institutions in Europe, and come back and be nation builders, come back and be world builders after the violence of colonialism had subsided. So I was born in Nigeria and immigrated to Southwest Atlanta with my family in the 80s. And yeah, we didn't come back. I mean, basically is what it comes down to. As we sort of navigated the challenges of immigrant life, and it became really difficult for my parents. My parents divorced, and my dad moved back to Nigeria. My mom stayed with us and my siblings. And yeah, I think that somebody told me basically that I wasn't going to be eligible for financial aid because I wasn't a US citizen. And so then I went to my mom and was like, we gotta become citizens. That this green card stuff is cool, but I definitely want to go to college. You don't have the money, no offense. So let's figure it out. My mother got a third job so that she could hire an immigration attorney. And I was responsible for making sure that my family passed the citizenship exam. So flashcards, notes, all of that, and became sort of deeply, deeply familiar with, the principles, the founding principles of this country, of this nation. Became sort of enamored with the idea of a government for, of, and by the people. And also, as a precocious, preteen, teenager, et cetera, started to also understand the gap between the rhetoric of American democracy and the reality of American democracy as experienced by women and poor people and new Americans, and wanted to do everything I could to close that gap, that I'm a fierce patriot. I chose to become a citizen of this country, and I choose to do everything that I can to make sure that that we sort of stamp out the hypocrisy, and that again the rights and responsibilities of citizenship are afforded to all of us, regardless of race, class, and gender.
Well, come in strong then. That is a beautiful story, and I really appreciate it when you said I chose this citizenship, right? Like when I think of myself as a African American, born here on this land, and I mean not having the choice, and I think about the lineage of my people here and not having the choice to want to be on this land. That really resonated with me, and so I celebrate you for that, sis, and just even having that opportunity to do that for yourself and for your family, as well as helping them and working through the process to on the path towards their citizenship.
And the process now is even more arduous and extraordinary. My father passed away, and he passed from COVID, and he's in Nigeria. And now that Nigeria is on the list of like Muslim banned countries, et cetera, like I have literally been trying to get to Nigeria for 5 weeks now. And it's been a whole mess. But, nevertheless, she persisted. And so it is my intention to celebrate the life of my father in Nigeria in the next 10 days. So wish me luck.
We lift you up and your ability to get back home so that you can partake in the celebration of your father and honoring him and his legacy. So Ashe, sister. So fast forward to, the New Georgia Project was founded by Stacey Abrams in 2013. I'm confident most know what sparked this. However, how did you become involved?
Yeah, so 2013, Leader Abrams launched the New Georgia Project. It was just after, it was time to implement the Affordable Care Act. And there are thousands of Black and brown and low wealth, poor Georgians, white folks in rural parts of the state who have worked 10, 20, 30, 40 years and have never, ever had employer provided health insurance, right? Never had any kind of health insurance. And so with 12 hospitals in rural Georgia about to close, with the highest maternal mortality rate in the country, I think that Leader Abrams saw an opportunity to go to implement the best of what we knew about community organizing to get a whole bunch of Black and brown folks and poor white folks to register to get on the exchange. But we also have a mantra within the organization about never lying to the people. And so we started to run into these really, really tough conversations. Like the truth of the matter is that the health insurance plans that are available on the exchange in Georgia are trash, that we don't have Medicaid expansion in our state. So they're super expensive and they really don't cover much. And so we found ourselves having to have these really tough conversations with people like, we need you to sign up because the more people that sign up, like the better it is. But the truth of the matter is that these for-profit insurance companies have manipulated the market, and that Republican legislators in Georgia were happy to let Georgians die and leave billions of dollars on the table because of their ideological opposition to what they called Obamacare. And so that was 2013. I was living and working in Canada at the time. I was the deputy ED, executive director for the largest faculty union in the country. Got a phone call from a friend of mine who was a young Democrat with me back in the days when I was in law school in Ohio, and said, are you coming home for the holidays? I said, yeah, of course. And then she said, well, I'd like for you to meet with this state representative. Her name is Stacey Abrams. And I was like, I'm really just coming home to be with my family. I really don't have time to meet with some state rep, but like, thanks though. And he was like, you guys should just have brunch, just hear her out. And I was like, well, you should have led with that, first of all. Brunch, I'm rolling.
Right. Love a good patio.
Right. I love a good patio. What? Orange juice, cheap champagne? I'm with it. So I meet Stacey for lunch, brunch on New Year's Day, 2014. we have this brilliant conversation where she lays out basically her vision for the New Georgia Project. We're trying to register these people for the Affordable Care Act. It's not working. And part of it is that our legislators in Georgia are deaf and blind to the pleas of the people in Georgia. And so there's no way that we're going to be able to save people's lives if we don't do the work to flip the composition of the Georgia state legislature. So, you know, at the time, there were 1.2 million Black, Latinx, and Asian Georgians, Asian American Georgians, who were eligible to vote and completely unregistered. So they weren't on anybody's list. They weren't in anybody's van. They're not in anybody's vote builder. They're not getting knocks. They're not getting phone calls. They're not getting text messages. They don't exist to the political establishment. And our goal was to register them all 1.2 million. And it mattered because when we started looking at top of the ticket races and throughout the history of Georgia, so President of the United States Senate, governor's races, the successful Republican was beating the losing Democrat by an average of about 250,000 votes for 10 years. That had been the win margin that they were holding on to power in Georgia. It was 250,000 votes. Well, there were 5 times the number of Black and brown Georgians than were required to swing any election in Georgia. So we got to work. We had brunch. She paid for the eggs. I was very grateful. And then I went back to Canada a few days later, and she went back to the legislature. She called me a few months later and said, it's time to come home. And she was like, so how much money do you make? And I told her, and she was like, well, can't pay you that. But
real,
it's time
right?
to come home. I got in my truck. I drove the 24 hours from Ottawa back home to Atlanta and we shifted the focus of the New Georgia Project the very next day. So from signing people up for the Affordable Care Act to doing a massive voter registration, civic engagement push to become sort of the independent political home, nonpartisan, but political. And I'm happy to talk about like why those distinctions matter greatly to us. But nonpartisan, independent political organizing home, an organizing powerhouse that would allow our families to win and then defend those wins beyond one election cycle. And so building a culture of organizing and building a culture of accountable leadership and bold, progressive politics in the South that's led by millennials and Gen Zers and people of color and women and queer folks, like not unheard of, but at this scale, and again, not a fly-by-night campaign formation, that this was going, we seek to build independent infrastructure that exists alongside the other infrastructure that exists in the state of Georgia.
Powerful. Look, I love that journey and like how you ended up back home. I mean, she said, it's time to come home, sis. And so that is amazing. And yes, I do want to give you the opportunity to kind of share, you know, that understanding and that analysis around the political home for Black and brown people. And I believe you'll be able to answer that in one of the upcoming questions. So recently, you were named on the Time 100 Next 2021 list. Kudos. And that's exciting. Congratulations. It's so weird. Yeah, that's pretty major. Time Magazine, come on now. Let's see, but however, you and other Georgian change makers are, you know, or however, while you and other Georgian change makers are celebrated for your historic work, voter work, share how state bills right now are threatening to diminish your work and set Georgia back. And briefly share, how are you currently fighting back?
Right. So in Georgia and 42 other state legislatures around the country, we are seeing almost 300 anti-voting bills been introduced. And it's because they're mad that they have been able to survive on the politics of white nationalism, and that the idea that America is not becoming a multiracial, multi-ethnic, multilingual democracy, that it already is a multi-ethnic democracy, and people are upset about it. And so that's what we're watching. That's what we're witnessing in this moment. Republican legislators in Georgia have introduced over 50 bills that are designed to make it more difficult for people to participate in our elections. Texas, yeah, 40, listen, it ain't but 50 states in the country. And so the idea that 43 of them currently, right now, are deliberating and debating how to make it more difficult for people to vote is an indication of how powerful we are and how close we are to actually winning. And so that's, what we're responding to in this moment. And the ways that we're responding in this moment is to increase the support, to create the demand for S1. So it was HR 1, now it's Senate 1 for the People Act, to create a federal standard for elections. That for far too long, individual political actors in states have been allowed to sort of use to make it more difficult, to violate our civil rights, to violate our human rights, to violate our economic rights, in an attempt to hold on to power. It's too much, and there is precedent for the federal government intervening and establishing a federal standard for something as fundamental as the right to vote. I think about the Voting Rights Act of 1965. I think about Title IX that prevented or banned gender-based discrimination in our schools, right? That there is a precedent for the federal government stepping in and saying, all right, enough, children, right? This is what the standard should be. And so we are pushing for S1 immediately right now. I think HR 4 is still super important. Our dearly departed Congressman, John Lewis, it's named after him. So it's the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. And essentially it says that if you have a history of voter suppression, if you're a state with a history or a jurisdiction with a history of voter suppression, that before you're going to be allowed to change any laws, that you should get permission, that you need to go see the Department of Justice, or you need to see a federal judge. That is a way to slow down, again, these partisan, these very political, these very petty and cynical politics that are designed to make it more difficult for people to vote in our elections. 43 states is not an exam. And most of these, sorry, calm down. We know that they are receiving support from well-funded, massive outside entities. That the fact that the language in the legislation is the same and similar in several states across the country tells us that they are being fed these anti-voting bills, that what we call the CEOs Union, which is the Chamber of Commerce, is encouraging them. They're giving them really bad advice. They're giving CEOs really bad advice in this moment, telling them to basically just wait it out. And so we are working to escalate, to raise the awareness around these issues, because this is an attack on our democracy. This is an attack on our ability to participate and to bring about the change that we seek. That if they're successful in thwarting the right to vote, then basically the whole flipping the Senate, flipping the White House is not for naught. That we are already looking at a lame duck president and vice president, and we're already looking at a lame duck Senate and House, because they're not going to be able to get anything done. And that is not why people risk their lives in the middle of a pandemic to turn out and vote. They voted for change, and we're still fighting for it.
And we're still fighting for it. That's that part. So we both have the distinguished honor of being members of this newly formed Black Southern Women Cooperative, with 4 other Black women-led justice organizations in the South. We're all representing, I'm representing Texas, you for Georgia, we have Ashley Shelton for Louisiana, we have Reverend Rhonda in Florida, we have Tamika Greer in Tennessee. Did I miss anybody? I think that's everybody. And That's all of us, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, and Stephanie Strong
Alabama.
in Alabama, right? So you got these amazing, brilliant Black women who have been tasked to, intentionally build this amazing 10-year strategy, to transform the South. What do you believe are the biggest obstacles we must overcome to truly create a just, equitable, thriving society for all people in the South? And how can our collaborative, in your opinion, help this vision become a reality?
Yeah, I think that, there are a couple of things. I think it's criminal how few, like how small the percentage of overall philanthropic dollars go to the South. How few go to Black-led and Black women-led organizations, given the outside impact, the outsized size of their impact on, policy and our politics. That because I think women of color leaders have been able to do a lot with a little, that we are being punished for our ability to, turn a dollar or turn a dime into a dollar. And so I think that that's a major hurdle that needs to overcome, that we need to overcome. I think number two is a crisis of imagination. I think that the reason that the wins, in Georgia hit so hard is that people were shocked. They didn't think that it would happen. Even people who had given to us, like I still get phone calls and text messages like, yeah, I'm a longtime donor. I volunteered with you all, and I didn't believe that it would happen. I didn't believe that it was possible. And so I think a crisis of imagination is also, and I think because people, particularly progressives, have been beat up so bad. I think that because wealth and whiteness have done such a number on our belief about what is possible in the future of America and the future of the South. I think that that is one of the things that's holding us back. I think the third thing is we are not great storytellers. I think that, one of the things that I am challenged with and that I constantly try to work with is like, there are times where I feel like I have to choose between doing the work or talking about the work, right? And that when we do the work, there are other people who tell our stories. There are other people who take claim for it and who take credit for it. And it's problematic, not around like who gets credit and who doesn't, but it's problematic because it's not replicable, right? That unless you're talking to the people who are making it happen, you can't repeat those results. And so we can't win the way we need to win for our families and for our communities and for the South if the people who are not bringing us these wins are not also telling their stories. And so building up communications infrastructure so that the Southern progressives have platforms to be able to tell the stories about how we built a better South, I think is super critical in this moment. There's so many people who find themselves in a position to tell our stories. And I think that that's one of the reasons why we are being held back, that the people in Mississippi are talking to the wrong folks, that if they want to know what it takes to win, that they need to be talking to us and vice versa.
Yes, touche. All of that, all of the above. Oh man, this part about the crisis of imagination, that is real. And yes, the piece around the storytelling and being better storytellers. When you're in the trenches and doing the work, what I mean? It's kind of like, and people are like reaching out to you, well, tell us, what did you, and it's like, well, we got to keep going because as soon as we just finished one win, they're already coming at us with, another 20, like
Listen,
moments of which they're like coming for our communities, coming for our family, coming for our neighbors, our siblings, like it's just tragic. And so, but it's
January
encouraging.
5th, Georgia
Yes.
delivered its first Black senator and its first Jewish senator to the United
Yes.
States Senate. January 6th,
Mm.
they were killing Capitol police officers and
Yes.
flying the Confederate flag, stuff that wasn't even possible during the Civil War. that
Yes.
Confederate soldiers weren't even successful in waving the Confederate flag in the people's house during the Civil War. And they were able to do that on January 6th. So yeah, in some instances, it's not that immediate. The backlash is not that immediate. It is always that severe though.
Man. Oh man, which brings me, okay, so whew, so the impact that our organizations seek to have over the next 5 years will require really audacious visions and plans, much of which you have already started on and have been able to carry out on. But it will also require significant multi-year funding. How did funding directly impact NGP's success leading up to the 2020 election cycle, as well as your most recent Senate work? And how much did it take? And over how many years to get to that point? And then please, sorry, I hate to add all these things, but explain how adequately funding your work is crucial, or this work, all of our collective work is crucial to the sustainability of not only the movement itself, but to all of us who are in this fight.
Yeah. So my conversation with Stacey happened on January 1st, 2014. I was driving in my truck with all of my things on July 31st, 2014. And we started the next day, August 1st. 2014. So that's how long it's been since, we focused on this sort of large scale civic engagement work. I say that, in our community, they say that if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Right. And so that's what I mean by infrastructure. That's what I mean by staying ready. That had we had to go out and rehire staff, because the thing that plagues our movement is this sort of the cyclical boom and bust of funding. People love to discover Georgia and love to discover young Black voters when it's time for a presidential election. And so there are lots of people who are intimately familiar with, again, the boom and the bust of the funding cycles. And they are able to just make it work and take electoral money and use it to fund organizing, et cetera. And for the first time in a long time, we didn't have to do that. I think that, obviously with the Senate race being as high profile as it was, we raised and spent like $15 million in 9 weeks. But that is in addition, but you have to understand that was in the context of $1 billion. So the Ossoff and Warnock races were the most expensive Senate races in the history of American politics. And it was $1 billion that was raised and spent. So an incredibly and extraordinarily noisy environment. And again, our ability to retain our staff, to retain our infrastructure, I didn't have to lay anyone off, which is usually what happens after the November election. And I know that's not unique to NGP, and I know that's not unique to Georgia, that we're able to staff up in the ways that we need to, but then people are gone by the end of the year and we have to start over and over again, training people, deploying people. It's a mess. And so the beauty of the 2020 election cycle, these are the silver linings, is that we were able to work from home until Labor Day. And then after deep consultation with public health experts, which we have never been able to afford in the past, deep consultation with public health experts, with our board, with our volunteers, with our staff, with our organizers, figure out a plan to go out and start having face-to-face conversations with Georgians about the things that matter. And yeah, that's a part of how we won, is that infrastructure. Again, I don't have to go out and recruit new people, explain what we do again, that we're able to build a cohort, an entire generation of activists, organizers, professional communicators, lawyers, graphic designers, or who come from our communities.
Yes.
And are committed to building over the long term for us to win.
I love that. That story right there, you need to package that as part of your storytelling to really lay out the brilliance that was behind that. I mean, just even naming the graphic designers and understanding that all of those tools are part of our digital organizing, like all of those things, and it's necessary to get our messaging in front of our target audiences, and that it does require an investment. We can't be, hitting up our cousins and be like, hey, can you come and shoot this video for me and edit it for me and add music, or make it feel really emotional, all of those things. And well, how much can you pay me? I mean, I could probably give you a couple $100, right? When we know that other organizations have the ability to invest thousands of dollars for a compelling video for, I mean, I know it's COVID, now, but when we have luncheons and galas, to invoke this emotion, right? And here we are on the grind in the streets doing the things, and aren't able to necessarily invest in that type of resource that can also not just serve for that one purpose, but can continue to go viral and can go across the globe to really expand our messaging. So thank you for sharing that. I want to make sure that we have time for Q&A, but I just have like one quick little thing I just really want to ask you real quick. So if you can answer it like really short for me, and I want to give people a chance to ask you some questions. So what would you like to say to any funders who are hesitant about getting involved in justice or voter engagement work because of the polarization of politics? And then also just quickly, just a brief phrase that it explains how your faith informs and motivates your work.
Okay. So my faith compels me to do justice. Like that is it, period. And so if I were still a corporate lawyer, before, I became a community organizer, hell, if I sold copiers, like my faith would compel me to do what I can, when I can, period. To alleviate suffering, to bring about the better world, to leave the world, to leave people, things better after I encounter them than when I encounter them, period. So yeah, that's a thread through my life, is that I am blessed to be a blessing to others.
Absolutely. Well, Nse, I sincerely thank you for your time and valuable information. It's an honor to learn from you, and to co-conspire with you and the other ladies, to turn the South Black and brown, together. You truly are history in the making, my dear sister. So let's open it up for a few questions, and please use